Okay, welcome to part two of your lecture on chapter 17. The next part is on science, the new authority. That begins the second half of it. What was the impact of the scientific revolution on Western culture? Most of us know what the scientific revolution was. It was the work of men like Isaac Newton here. He worked on light with prisms. He worked on calculus. He worked on the laws of motion. Uh, Galileo with his telescope, Copernicus with the heliocentric, helio having to do with sun-centered solar system. It was a turning point in ideas because for Western thought. There was skepticism about witchcraft and magic. No longer did people accept this idea that witches had these great powers or that magic was something that was real. They believed that people could control their own world, and a philosophy called deism grew. Now, deism is this idea that God created the world. Okay, he provided all the natural laws, and then God left the world and had nothing to do with it afterwards. In other words, what it's the analogy used by deists was that God was a clockmaker. He built this beautiful clock, being the world, gave it natural laws, then set it in motion and stepped back to watch his creation work. Gave man, humans, free will and said, now you can go about doing what you want. You have free will, you can make your own choices, and the world will go on without me. Okay? The core of this whole idea was this sun-centered, Copernicus with his heliocentric view, sun-centered view of the solar system really kicked it off. It challenged the church in a way that had never been done before, at least not through the Middle Ages. It challenged the church. It challenged the church with new ideas because the church had preached the ideas of a guy by the name of Ptolemy. Ptolemy had said the Earth stood at the center of the universe and everything else moved around it. And when Copernicus said no, that revolutionized things. And last, there was a greater belief in the possibility of humans. Humans are capable of greater and greater things. All right, next up, what's going on with absolute and parliamentary monarchies. There are two types of monarchies. One's absolute and the other is parliamentary. What were the core beliefs of mercantilism? We've talked a little bit about this, but basically that the government should promote its internal economy. In other words, France ought to promote France's economy, and it should limit imports. It should do everything to protect its own internal national businesses. That means against competition from other European powers and against competition from uh, its own colonies, even its own colonies. Here on the right, you see Louis the 14th. He's the Don of and the sort of the poster child for absolutism. They believed in a strong military with expansionist foreign policy. What do I mean by expansionist? They're expanding and collecting colonies, expanding and collecting colonies, and then there's political power derived from the people, not a divine right. That's where John Locke said power came from. Locke said, no, 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 no. You guys like Louis the 14th and Louis the 16th and some of these German Prussian kings, you're wrong. Power does not derive from God. It derives from permission of the citizens. All right. I like this cartoon. Your new press secretary said, wow, you're not as tall as I thought you'd be, nor as forgiving as you thought I'd be. It shows him strung up. But this is also another picture from a modern day political cartoonist. Um, the Zimbabwe leader said, so you're telling me the whole appointed by God shtick is 290s? And he said, yes, sir, but as in 1790s. But as always, you look fabulous in a nicely designed European suit. Okay. Next up, what about the growth of nation states? What is a nation state? A nation state is a government ruled by people who share a common language and culture. Now, Might there be minorities within this nation? Yes. But the overriding connection is a language and culture. So I've got a map up here. So if we're talking Poland, the idea is that most of the people within Poland speak Polish and share that language and a shared history, a shared culture. Um, Bulgaria down here, they speak Bulgarian. They share a culture, and it makes appeals to loyalty easier. So when France goes to war, they can appeal to your honor as Frenchmen. When the English go to war, you can appeal to your honor as Englishmen. That we will back our nation because we are good Englishmen and we do what we need to do. Okay, this just shows some of them. Now, England will move to be a nation state during the 1450 to 1750 time period. France will, Spain will, Portugal. But you can see how Italy's divided up. Rome's not really got its act together. Poland, Lithuania, Ottomans here in Eastern Europe. So not yet. Not yet. Not 1450 to 1750, which is the time period we've been in. Not yet. Okay. Next up, what are some of the political changes introduced in Prussia? Now, Prussia is run by a guy named Frederick II, Frederick the Great. Frederick controls all this that's in dark purple here on this map. Can you see it? Dark purple running across Prussia. Um, he expanded the military and the bureaucracy, tried to develop a better run nation. He granted religious freedom. He claimed to be an enlightened despot. That means an enlightened dictator. He's a guy who claims to be benevolent, claims to do what's good for people, but he does not, please understand this, he does not share authority with anyone else. He will not share authority with anyone else. The three main enlightened despots are Frederick the Great, who got rid of torture in Prussia, Joseph II, who gave Austrians the freedom of the press, and Catherine the Great, who increased laws in Russia, changed laws to increase individual rights. All right. What about Enlightenment thought and culture during this time period of 1450 to 1750? All right, how did Enlightenment provide the underlying ideas for the social sciences? There in bullet one, I've got it applied scientific methods to the study of human society. In other words, it said that humans act in a very rational and scientific manner. Therefore, therefore, we can study their actions and learn and make predictions, learn about what they need, what they want, and that. Describe the Enlightenment's basic beliefs about human affairs. Bullet point number two. They believed humans were rational and good. Therefore, we could be educated to be better. Diversity, Voltaire down here at the bottom, should be tolerated. They said, listen, humans are inherently, with a few exceptions, rational creatures, and we want to do what's good for people. And with education, we can even behave better. These are some of they would meet and discuss, particularly in France, at coffee shops. They would meet and discuss these Enlightenment ideas. Um, they said on this tolerance thing, here's one of Voltaire's quotes: prejudices are what fools use for reason. Voltaire said there should be a separation between church and state. The church should not run the government, and the church should not tell everybody what to do. Okay, and this is one of his other quotes. I know it's probably hard to read on the video. Sorry about that, but it says, since the whole affair had become one of religion, the vanquished were of course exterminated. Voltaire. In other words, what he's saying here with this quote is that religion becomes something with which people mistreat others, and therefore we should be tolerant of people. All right, last two slides. Describe the basic home cottage industry of 1450 to 1750. And this is the idea that capitalist merchants distributed supplies while workers ran the production for pay. In other words, down here, look at the bottom right-hand picture. You can see people working in their home, children, wives, husbands, to do the work and then sell the finished goods on to um, the the merchant who would be wandering around selling it. This is not the same as the above picture of factories. Um, Oops, need to go back. Sorry. Um, Manufacturers organized production and sale. The work was moved. Okay, it says what were the difference between manufacturers and artisans? The work was moved out of the home, and workers were commodities. Artisans did work for themselves, usually in their homes. Hang on a second. Okay, sorry about that. We got interrupted by announcements. Manufacturing moves the work out of the home, basically, and puts it in a factory. And what I mean by workers become commodities, in other words, workers are treated like raw materials. You can hire them, you can fire them. There's not much connection to your workers. Artisans were usually highly skilled people who did their work from home. Okay, last one. Describe some of the instabilities which this innovation into manufacturing brought about. Okay, population growth encouraged changes in family and the role of children. In other words, as populations grow under manufacturing, the families change. Students will be coming in here in just a minute, so I'm going to try to wrap this up. Enlightenment challenged the roles of kings. Kings were no longer considered uh, perfect under the eyes of God and could not, um, were not perfect. And so now people start to challenge kings. You get things like the French Revolution. And children who believe in their own worth would challenge traditional political structures. In other words, no longer are children going to accept just because my parents said so or just because the government said so. So enlightenment challenges kings, overturns government, population growth, manufacturing, challenge the family, and traditional structure. Thanks for listening.